My name is Ed. I live in Nevada. I'm 52 and I work as an HVAC tech. It's not a glamorous job, but it's honest work. I spend most of my days in crawl spaces and basements, bent over ductwork, covered in dust and sweat, fixing the things people forget exist until they break. That's the kind of man I am. Quiet, invisible, necessary. Or at least I used to think I was necessary. When my older brother died, it felt like the ground cracked open under the whole family. He left behind a wife, Melissa, and a son, Cameron. The boy was 12. Skinny, guarded, silent in that way kids get when they've seen too much too soon. Melissa was wrecked. I remember the way she used to sit in silence on their front porch after the funeral, smoking those menthols she hated, like she was waiting for someone to come save her, but didn't believe anyone would. I thought I could help. I thought stepping in was the right thing to do, not just for her, but for Cam. My brother's blood. Family. I asked her to marry me 6 months later. It wasn't some fairy tale whirlwind. It was practical. We didn't even honeymoon. Just signed the papers at the courthouse and went back to work the next day. She cried at the ceremony. Not out of joy, out of exhaustion. Relief, maybe, like she was handing over something too heavy. Cam never called me Dad. That was clear from day one. It was always Ed. I didn't push him. I figured he needed time. I kept my head down and did the work. School fees, packed lunches, parent-teacher nights, new shoes every 6 months because he grew like a weed. I was there when he broke his wrist skateboarding, sat by his hospital bed all night while Melissa slept in the car. I signed the forms, drove him to therapy when the grief turned into anger. And God, he had a lot of it. He lashed out at teachers, at Melissa, at himself. But not once did he ever direct it at his real father, the one in the ground. That pedestal stayed intact. I was the placeholder, the shadow, the one who filled the silence, who paid the bills, who showed up. Every time his biological father failed, which was always because death doesn't send birthday cards, I stepped in. Every expense I covered. Every broken thing I fixed. And it wasn't just the big things. It was the little luxuries too. Guitar lessons when he wanted to be a musician. A new laptop when he said the school ones were too slow. Premium streaming accounts so he could study with music. I told myself it didn't matter if he said thank you. That someday he'd look back and see it all. When he turned 18, I co-signed for his first apartment near college. Paid the deposit. Furnished the place with hand-me-downs and a few things from Target. He acted like it was a given. Like beds and microwaves just appear when you need them. Never asked how much it cost. Never looked back when I handed over the keys. Melissa always said, "He's just a kid, Ed. Don't take it personally." But how do you not take it personally when a child you've raised like your own barely acknowledges you exist? When every sacrifice you make is treated like air. Even so, I kept giving. When his car broke down, I paid the repairs. When he needed extra cash for textbooks, I transferred the money without him asking. He got used to it. They both did. Melissa stopped even pretending to check with me before spending. "It's for Cam," she'd say, and I'd nod. That was the magic phrase. As long as it was for Cam, I wasn't allowed to say no. He was 22 when he graduated. I remember thinking how proud I was, even if he never said the words I wanted to hear. I still believed that maybe the moment would come when he'd pull me aside, shake my hand, say, "Thank you for stepping in, for staying." That moment never came. It was a Tuesday night. I had just gotten home from a double shift. My back hurt so bad I couldn't stand up straight. Melissa had made dinner, store-bought lasagna, microwaved, but I appreciated the gesture. Cameron was home for a few days before starting a job I helped him get, an internship at the HVAC company I worked for. I had to pull strings for that one. Vouched for him with my name, my reputation. We were sitting at the table. The TV was on low in the background. The food was average, the conversation thin. I thought it was just fatigue. Then, out of nowhere, Cam set down his fork, looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're not family. You're just a walking bank account." It didn't land like a punch. It landed like a truth he'd been holding back for years, finally dropped on the table like loose change. Melissa laughed, not because it was funny, but because she didn't know what else to do. That little fake giggle. The kind that says, let's pretend he didn't mean it. Cam didn't flinch. Didn't backtrack. He turned to her, smug, calm, and said, tell him we make the decisions now. He just pays. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Just sat there, my fork halfway to my mouth, frozen in a moment that felt like my own funeral. Because that's what it was, in a way. The death of the illusion I'd been living in. 10 years of sacrifice. A decade of patience, of swallowing disrespect, of being the steady hand when everything else fell apart. And it all dissolved in one sentence. I looked at Melissa. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Just kept chewing. Just kept pretending it hadn't happened. That's when I realized the truth. This wasn't a slip. It wasn't a cruel joke or a teenager mouthing off. This was what they'd always thought. And now they weren't afraid to say it out loud. I didn't yell. That night, after the lasagna dried on the plates and the house settled into silence, I sat in the garage with the lights off and the door closed. No engine running. Just the dark pressing against my skin like cold steel. My hands shook. My jaw ached from clenching it through dinner. But I didn't speak a word. Not then. Not to them. The anger wasn't loud. It wasn't explosive. It was quiet, dense. Like smoke in the lungs, you don't even notice it until it's choking you. I stared at the toolbox in the corner, the shelves I built myself, the old space heater humming beside the freezer. I'd spent years in that garage fixing everything they ever broke. Cam's busted bike, Melissa's car battery, furniture they ordered online but didn't know how to assemble. I was always fixing something, always patching, covering, gluing this family together. But that night, I didn't want to fix anything. I wanted to disappear, so I started the shutdown. No speeches, no threats, just actions. Just the slow, deliberate unraveling of the life I'd built for them. I opened my laptop and logged into every account I had. First came the health insurance, removed Cameron as a dependent. He had his own job now, he could figure it out. Then I canceled the gas card. The one he used like it was his birthright. Netflix, gone. Spotify, disabled. Cell plan, disconnected. The credit card I'd given him, for emergencies, locked and shredded. One by one, I closed the valves. I didn't tell Melissa. I didn't ask for her blessing. Why would I? They'd made it clear. I was just a wallet. And when a wallet snaps shut, no one cares what it thinks. The next morning, I woke before the sun, got dressed, and took the only working car in the driveway. Left them with the hybrid that needed new tires and a brake job. The one Cameron said was too slow to bother fixing. Let him fix it, then. Let him learn. He didn't call me. He called Melissa. I listened from the hallway as she stood in the kitchen, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. Her voice hushed and frantic. I don't know. Cam, maybe something happened at work. No, I didn't change anything. I'll ask him when he gets home. But she didn't ask. 2 days later, Cam showed up. Not to visit. Not to apologize. He barged in, red-faced, holding his dead phone in one hand like a corpse. My campus pass is deactivated. My phone's dead. What happened? Melissa looked at me like I was the villain in some story she wasn't brave enough to write. Like she was waiting for me to say something that would make her son calm down. I looked Cam in the eye and said, I stopped funding disrespect. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. At his graduation, he walked in on foot. No suit. No guests. No job offer. His internship had fallen through. Said something about transportation issues. He blamed traffic. But I knew better. No ride. No insurance. No way to show up. The company wouldn't wait. His girlfriend cried outside the auditorium. I heard her through the open windows, whispering, What happened to the trip? You said we were going to Mexico. I'd been the one planning to pay for it. I'd booked the flights, held the reservation. I canceled all of it. Melissa asked me later, her voice sharp, wounded. Did you really pull all of it? I didn't blink. No, he did. I just left. She didn't like that answer. Said I was being cold. Said I was punishing a boy for acting like a boy. But he wasn't a boy. He was 22. And he'd been living off me like a parasite, confusing comfort with love, money with affection. And maybe that's on me. Maybe I taught him that. Maybe I made it too easy for him to forget who was footing the bill. Kem watched me drive away that day. Just stood there, arms crossed, nothing in his hands. His lips didn't move, but his face said it all. Confusion, shame, maybe even fear. I don't know what he thought would happen. That I'd come crawling back? That Melissa would mediate, smooth things over like she always did? Not this time. The house grew quiet after that. Tense. Melissa walked on eggshells, tried to act normal, cooked more, asked me about my day, reached for my hand while we watched TV. But it all felt like a performance. She wasn't really with me. She was trying to keep the stage from collapsing. Cameron sent her texts. I saw the previews light up her phone. Can you talk to him? I need help. Tell him I'm sorry. Just not like this. Not once did he call me directly. It had always gone through her. Even as a kid. Ask Ed. See if Ed will let me. Can Ed drive me? I was the background noise of his life. Now I was gone, and the silence was deafening. A week passed, then another. The bank accounts sat untouched. I removed him as an authorized user on everything. Cancelled the extra line on my family plan. Changed passwords. Melissa cried one night. Not loud. Just a soft, strangled thing behind the bathroom door. I didn't go to her. She hadn't come to me when it mattered. Let her sit in that silence. Let her feel what I've been feeling for 10 years. The hollow ache of being in a house where you give everything and mean nothing. I started eating dinner at the kitchen counter. Alone. Melissa stayed in the living room. We didn't talk much. Just let the days stack on top of each other like dead leaves. Then Cam came back. 2 weeks after the shutdown. He didn't knock. Just walked through the door like it still belonged to him. Melissa rushed up. He's here, she said, like she was announcing a miracle. He stood in the doorway, thinner than I remembered, eyes darker, jaw tighter. I screwed up, he said, not to his mom, to me. I thought you were just supposed to do all this, he added, that it was your role. I didn't say anything, just looked at him. He looked back. For the first time, he really looked. You were always there, he said. And I made you a stranger. I nodded. It wasn't about money, Ed. It was about respect. And I want to fix that. I didn't answer. Just let the silence stretch. Later that night, Melissa sat on the edge of the bed and said, he means it. Maybe we can talk it out? I said, he's an adult. I'm not chasing him. Let him show who he wants to be. Kem didn't ask for money after that. He got a job at a warehouse, loading pallets, working nights, enrolled in online classes, paid out of pocket. I watched him week by week showing up, tired, quiet, present, no more demands, no more entitlement, just effort. 3 months later, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside, a check for $3,000. The exact total of the gas, insurance, and streaming subscriptions I'd covered for him over the past year. Written on the envelope in his handwriting. Time to repay what I took for granted. Melissa cried when she saw it. I didn't. I just folded the check, slid it into a drawer, and said, we'll see if it cashes. I didn't cash the check. Not because I didn't need the money, I did. $3,000 would have covered a new compressor for my truck. Maybe even helped with the property tax that was coming due. But cashing it would have made it a transaction. And I wasn't interested in transactions anymore. I'd lived too long in that role. The silent donor, the unacknowledged lifeline. So I let the check sit in my drawer. Folded in half, tucked behind an old warranty form for a refrigerator I no longer owned. I wanted to see what came next. Cameron didn't ask about it. Didn't follow up. He just kept showing up. Every Sunday, same time, like he'd set a reminder on his phone. Sometimes he brought coffee. Sometimes nothing at all. But he always came with the same look in his eyes. Tired, humble, deliberate. He'd help me with repairs around the house. Routing the bathroom tiles, resealing the windows, changing out filters. All the things I used to do alone. All the things no one had noticed until they stopped getting done. He didn't ask for praise. Didn't linger when he finished. Just wiped his hands on a rag, nodded once, and left. No grand speeches. No apologies scripted for effect. Just presence. And for once, that was enough. Melissa started softening. You could hear it in the way she said his name again. Lighter, warmer. Cam called, she'd mention at dinner. He said work's going okay. He's getting better shifts. I'd nod. She'd watch me closely, always looking for the edge, the resentment. But I dulled the blade. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't anything. That's what happens when you empty yourself. There's no more room for rage. Only memory. And memories don't yell. They whisper. I kept working. HVAC doesn't slow down in Nevada. Especially not in the summer. The heat melts patience. People get desperate when their air stops flowing. And I was always the guy who showed up. No matter what was happening at home, I showed up. That's who I was. A man who never walked away from a job until it was done. Until they gave me a reason to. A month after the check, Melissa sat me down. Her hands were shaking. Not from fear, from effort. Like she was holding something heavy and didn't know how to set it down. I think he really wants to fix things, she said. I didn't answer. She waited a long time before continuing. He asked about the check. Not directly, but he mentioned it. Said he wanted you to know it wasn't a guilt payment. He said it was about accountability. Still, I said nothing. She looked at me like she was searching for a door. Some way back into a conversation we used to know how to have. Ed, do you think we could move past it? All of this? I looked her in the eye. I moved past it the night he told me who I was. Her face crumpled, like something inside her gave way. He was angry. He was stupid. He didn't mean it. I shrugged. He meant it enough to say it. She reached for my hand. I let her, but I didn't squeeze back. The truth was, I didn't know if we could move past it. Because to move past something, you have to believe it's behind you. And me? I wasn't sure. That line Cameron drew between me and him, between family and obligation, it didn't feel like history. Felt like a scar. Permanent. But scars fade. Some, anyway. Weeks went by. Then months. Cameron didn't ask for money. Didn't ask for advice. He just kept living. Broke. Busy. Burdened. But quiet. And for the first time in his life, he looked like someone I could stand next to without feeling used. That was new. One Sunday, he brought his girlfriend over. I hadn't seen her in a year. Since the graduation day, I left them standing in the parking lot. This is Ed, he told her. He's not my biological dad. He's the guy who became one when mine bailed. The words didn't register at first. Not fully. But Melissa looked at me, eyes wide, like she'd heard a prayer answered. I shook the girl's hand. She was polite, nervous. But what struck me most was the way Cameron looked at her. Protective, steady, nothing like the brat who once smirked his way through dinners I paid for. After they left, I went to the drawer. The check was still there. Crisp, clean, uncashed. I stared at it for a long time. Then I got a pen. Flipped the envelope over. Wrote a note. Respect isn't bought. But effort is interest. I left the check inside. Mailed it back. Melissa didn't know. Cameron didn't mention it. But a week later, I found a gift card in the mailbox. Hardware store. $50. No note. That Sunday he brought donuts. The kind I liked, the kind he never used to remember. And we didn't talk about any of it. We just sat on the porch. Ate in silence. Watched the desert burn gold under the setting sun. I still didn't call him my son. And he didn't call me dad. But for the first time in years, the silence between us didn't hurt. It healed. We're not a family. Not in the way that word gets thrown around in TV shows and holiday cards. We don't take group photos. We don't say, I love you, when someone hangs up. We don't hug unless someone's bleeding. But we're something. And after everything that was broken, after every cold stare and silent dinner and shredded bit of dignity, something is more than I expected. Cam still shows up on Sundays. Always around noon. Never late. Sometimes he brings bagels. Sometimes he brings tools. Once, he brought a replacement part for my condenser fan and said, "You mentioned it was rattling." I hadn't remembered saying that, but he did. We work side by side now. Quiet, efficient. He listens when I explain things. Doesn't interrupt. He asks questions, and when I answer, he nods, not like someone checking a box, but like someone who actually wants to learn. Melissa watches from the kitchen, sometimes with pride, sometimes with guilt, but mostly in silence. She stopped trying to fix it, stopped asking me if we're back to normal, because this is the new normal. Raw, sparse, real. Cam and I talk about work now, about pipes, coils, airflow, things that don't demand trust, just time. It's safer that way. We don't talk about the years he called me a stranger. We don't talk about the girl he nearly took to Mexico on my dime. We don't talk about the night he looked me in the face and reduced me to a checkbook. But the echoes are there. In the pauses. In the way he sometimes looks at me when I'm not looking at him. He remembers. One Sunday, as we were cleaning out the shed, he said, "You ever think about retirement?" I chuckled. HVAC guys don't retire. We just slow down and die with a wrench in our hand. He laughed, but it was quiet, thoughtful, like something in that answer didn't sit right with him. That week, a small deposit showed up in my account. Not much, maybe a couple $100. Description just said, Ed, 401k. I didn't ask, and he didn't explain. The next Sunday, he brought over an envelope. Inside was a printed spreadsheet, messy formatting, crooked columns, but I could see what it was. A budget. His budget. Rent, food, gas, savings. All of it laid out. Accountable. Precise. "I want to start building something," he said. I didn't say a word. Just took the envelope and nodded. Because what do you say to a man who finally learned what you were trying to teach him for 10 years? Not, "I'm proud of you." Not, "Good job." You just nod and get back to work. The truth is, I don't forgive easily. That dinner, that sentence, "You're not family. You're just a walking bank account." It didn't just sting. It rewrote everything that came before. It made every birthday party I paid for feel hollow. Every night I sat outside his school in the parking lot while he rehearsed for band or theater or whatever phase he was in. All of it got pulled into a vacuum. When someone tells you that you never mattered, it's not a wound. It's a deletion. Melissa still doesn't get it. She thinks progress means we're whole again. But what we are is functional. Like a machine that lost power but still runs when you jumpstart it. Cam's different now. Grounded. Quieter. He doesn't chase things anymore. Doesn't try to prove he's better than the people who raised him. Maybe because he finally understands what raising someone actually costs. He's with a new girl now. Different from the one who wanted beaches and resorts. This one works at a daycare. Drives a used Civic. Laughs easily. When he introduced us, he said, "This is Ed. He's the guy who showed up when it mattered." It was the closest thing to Dad I've ever heard. And maybe that's enough. One night, Melissa and I sat on the back porch. The stars were out. Quiet desert wind rolling in over the fence. She asked, "Do you love him?" I didn't answer right away. She said, "I mean now, after everything, do you still love him?" I looked up at the sky, then down at my hands, the same hands that fixed his brakes, made his lunches, held his mother when she cried. "I don't know if love's the word," I said, "but I respect the man he's trying to be." She didn't push, just nodded. That's our language now, silence and nods. That same week, Cam brought over a toolbox. Said it was his. Said he wanted to keep it at my place. In case we needed to fix anything together. He still doesn't call me Dad. Still signs his texts with just a C. But he remembers birthdays now. Remembers my coffee order. Black, 2 sugars. No cream. Remembers to ask how work is going. He's building something. Not for me. Not because of me. But in the shape I once left behind. The shape of presence. And I see it now, clearly, painfully. What I taught him was not how to be grateful. What I taught him was how to show up. Because that's what fatherhood is. Not biology. Not approval. Not even love. It's presence. to sweat. It's silence. It's the long drive to a school you never went to, sitting in a car you paid for, waiting for a boy who won't thank you, and showing up again the next day anyway. It's holding the line when everyone else walks away. And then one day letting go, letting them fall, letting them fail, and seeing if they come back. He came back, not with flowers, not with an apology speech, but with tools, with time, with consistency. That's how I know it's real. That's how I know he finally understands. So here's what I learned. If someone tells you you're not family, believe them. Believe them the first time. But if they return without asking for the keys, without crying for your wallet, if they show up with calloused hands and quiet words, then maybe, just maybe, you didn't waste your life. Not entirely. Sometimes the lesson isn't in being right. It's in being gone long enough for them to miss the weight you carried. So no, we're not the family I imagined. But we are something better than what we were. And I got there by walking away. Not forever, but long enough to be heard. Now you tell me, was I wrong to leave? Was I wrong to make them feel the silence I lived in for years? Would you have stayed? Would you have kept paying? Kept nodding? Kept swallowing that contempt? Just to keep the peace? Because I did. Until I didn't. And that's when everything finally changed.